Hi everyone. I was learning substance designer. This is the latest project. It is at a point at which I think I should consider it complete so I can move on to something else. Its reference is this. I took this photo on a footpath, broken footpath tiles. So before you start working on something, you should research about what is called exactly the terminology. These tiles they are called dumbbell tiles because once you understand the shape you can read it in different ways, and the more ways you can read a shape, the more flexibility you can add for the user. For example, in this project I added some flexibility to edit this shape. The user can change the size of this middle rectangle in both axes. They can change the size and position of side rectangle. Not too extreme. The fail sets some values. I'm working on those. So let me show you how I read this shape, and the method which is filling the middle parts automatically. So I read it like this. A dumbbell tile is made of two rectangles. One is in the middle. I didn't connect my Wacom tablet, so you can consider all these lines straight. So these are two rectangles. This shape is symmetrical in such a way that I have to only worry about one quadrant. If I get this part right, the rest is can be filled by filter. What I did was I tracked this point and this point and used some 10 standard geometry, which is finally useful now, to make a trapezium that can fit between these two rectangles. So the user can move and scale this rectangle, scale this rectangle, and it will always give a perfect fit trapezium. Let's see how that looks in function graph. So if I have to explain it right now, I couldn't because there are no comments. It's just a equation that I derived from some trial and error and logic. I believe it is the equation of a point in a 2D, something like that. The part that confused me most is the center of the graph. Sometimes I have to use the center of image to be the reference point, and sometimes for the quad filter, this quad transform grayscale. For this, I had to use top left to be the 0 point. But basically, I got the job done. This is how it looks actually. The rest is fixed by a mirror. And to add more flexibility to it, in tiling set, we also have some options to squash and stretch the shape by playing with the tiling amount. So I settled on this. This looks aesthetic to me. The rest is height building. These cracks that are in the beginning of the graph, they were actually added in at the last. They look ugly at this point to me. I kept it as it is. These are also cracks at varying heights. And this is a cool thing I use. It is changing the slope of each tile. What we can do using flood fill is it can detect shapes separated by blacks or whites and give each shape its own gradient. In simple words, you can give a different slanting angle to each individual shape. If I increase the height to some big value like 50, you can see that each tile is slanted a little differently. At big values, it obviously looks ugly, but at small values, it adds more randomness. Next up is this warp filter. It is to give some deformation. Before that, it was very even. So warp filter added some organic nature to it. After that, we have some indent. If I look at the reference closely, each tile is having this indent going all around the outline. So I tried to add that. Then I want to destroy the edges a little bit. I prepared this map that cuts the tile at the edges. At random parts, we got broken edges. What is this doing here? So I added some small rocks. There are some additions that ultimately made it look ugly because I didn't do height blending good enough, and they are some bright spots. So if I increase the height value too much, they appear as spikes, which is bad. That is it for the most part in height building. Headache after the shape logic was the color. Having different color for different feature is a headache. There could be easier ways. I am still learning. What I found is a technique which is quite useful. It is to extract a palette from a bitmap. So I used an image this for making palettes for the color. This is bitmap is going through this HSL filter, so I can control the saturation and lightness. Then I am quantizing a gradient and feeding it to gradient map. Using gradient map and gradient dynamic, I am generating this simple palette out of a complex image. So these limited colors are being used for different features. This is majority of the color without the grass and rocks detail. Then one by one I added more details in color using height as a mask to ultimately get this, let's see, at 100%. I also tried to add the little grainy parts. In tiles, we can see some very shiny spots mirror like. So I tried to add them too in roughness and color. The normal was nothing special, just fed it some height and got input. Same with the ambient occlusion. With roughness, I had to use nothing much, just inverted ambient occlusion with some clamping. For more detailed roughness, I can put more work in it, but I already considered it complete, so I won't touch it. In the end, I got this. The rendered output looks like this. This is a still from Blender. I lost a lot of green in this render. These are the spike I was talking about. These hot spots. They look bad in render. This is another render. So that is it for this project. And I will experiment more on some other things. Thanks for watching.